It was a crisp evening in New York City when Barron Trump walked into the lobby of a luxurious hotel after a long day of travel. Dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, his appearance was far from the typical high-end guest one might expect to see at such an exclusive establishment. Yet, as he entered, the hotel's atmosphere remained serene, its marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting, and gold fixtures glimmered in the background, highlighting the elegance of the space. The lobby was filled with a quiet hum of activity. Guests in tailored suits and glamorous dresses exchanged pleasantries, sipping on champagne, while the hotel's refined ambience offered a sense of exclusivity and comfort. The concierge was helping a couple at the desk, while others lounged on plush sofas by the grand windows, taking in the stunning city skyline. Barron walked through the lobby with a calm and collected demeanor, tired from his journey but unfazed by the luxury around him. He was a man who valued simplicity and kindness over appearances, and it would soon become clear that his presence in this high-end world was far more significant than anyone could have imagined. Barron Trump approached the front desk of the luxury hotel, the soft glow of the lobby's elegant chandeliers casting a warm light across the marble floors. The receptionist, Amanda, a young woman in her late 20s, was busy typing on her computer. She had been working at the hotel for a few months now and felt confident in her ability to assess the type of guest who would walk through the doors. Her sharp gaze swept over Barron as he approached the desk. "Good evening, sir," she said with a practiced smile, though her tone was slightly dismissive. She glanced at his casual attire, a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, which seemed out of place in the refined environment. Barron didn't fit the usual profile of their elite clientele. "Do you have a reservation?" Amanda asked, the edge of her voice hinting at the assumption that someone who looked like him likely didn't. She expected a brief exchange, a quick check-in, and then back to the luxury that the hotel represented. But this man, dressed in the simplest of clothes, didn't belong in her world of carefully curated appearances. Barron nodded calmly and reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. "Yes, I do," he said, his voice steady. "Here's my reservation confirmation." Amanda barely looked at the phone as Barron handed it over. She kept her gaze fixed on him, sizing him up. Her eyes lingered on his hoodie and worn-out jeans, visibly dismissing him as if his casual appearance made him unworthy of the luxury surrounding them. The air in the lobby seemed to thicken with the subtle tension, though none of the other guests seemed to notice. She let out a quiet, almost inaudible sigh before speaking again, this time with a hint of sarcasm in her voice. "We usually don't let just anyone in here," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "This is a high-end hotel, after all. We cater to an elite clientele, CEOs, celebrities, people who actually fit the profile." The words stung more than Amanda realized, but Barron's expression remained neutral. He had heard comments like this before in his life, dismissals based on appearance, assumptions about what he should look like or how he should behave. He didn't let it faze him. "I understand," Barron replied calmly. "But I do have a reservation, and I'd like to check in." His voice was measured, but there was a quiet firmness to it that made it clear he wasn't going to back down. Amanda's eyes narrowed slightly as she glanced at the phone again, but only for a moment. She was still skeptical. In her mind, Barron didn't meet the standards of the hotel's clientele, and that was enough for her. Instead of letting go of her judgment, she continued with her dismissive attitude. "This isn't the type of place you can book on a whim," she added, her voice becoming colder. "Maybe you should try somewhere else. There's a lovely little motel down the street for people like you." Barron stood still, taking in her words, his expression still calm but now tinged with a hint of disappointment. He wasn't going to engage in an argument, but it was clear that Amanda's judgment was based on assumptions and appearances alone. He handed her the phone again, his voice unwavering. "Please, check the reservation again. I assure you, I'm the one who belongs here." As Barron remained composed, his patience tested by the receptionist's judgment, the tension in the lobby grew. Amanda, oblivious to the ripple effect of her words, continued her cold demeanor, oblivious to the weight of the situation unfolding before her. Meanwhile, Barron's calm response was a stark contrast to the condescending behavior he was enduring. Despite the discomfort, he didn't waver. He remained the embodiment of quiet confidence and grace in the face of unwarranted disrespect. Amanda's eyes lingered over Barron, her judgment clouding her every word. She had already dismissed him once, but now her irritation grew as she focused on his casual outfit. She couldn't fathom why someone dressed so plainly would think they could enter a high-end establishment like this. The boutique hotel catered to people who understood luxury, and to her, Barron was the exact opposite of that ideal. So, Amanda began, her tone condescending as she eyed Barron up and down. "What exactly brings someone like you here?" She raised an eyebrow, letting the words hang in the air. "I mean, this is a luxury hotel. It's not some cheap motel, you know." Barron stood still, unflinching. He wasn't bothered by her words, but there was a trace of disappointment in his eyes. How quickly people could judge based on appearance. How easy it was for Amanda to make assumptions about him without knowing anything at all. Amanda leaned forward, her voice lowering in an almost mocking whisper for only Barron to hear. "You might want to reconsider staying here if you're not used to the kind of atmosphere we provide," she said, her gaze unwavering and cold. "We cater to people who know what they're doing, not people who wander in without understanding the experience we offer." Around them, the energy in the lobby shifted. A few guests, lounging nearby, overheard the exchange and shifted in their seats uncomfortably. One man, a businessman in a tailored suit, glanced over at Barron and then quickly looked away, sensing the growing tension in the air. A couple in the corner, young professionals, exchanged nervous glances, silently debating whether or not to intervene, but ultimately deciding against it. The discomfort in the room was palpable, though no one dared to speak up. It was as if the lobby itself had become a stage, with Barron and Amanda standing at the center. The only sound that could be heard was the soft clink of glasses in the bar and the low hum of conversations that continued around them. Despite the awkwardness of the moment, Barron's demeanor remained unshaken. He wasn't going to rise to her bait. He wasn't going to match her condescension. He simply responded with a calm, measured voice. "I understand the importance of the atmosphere you've worked hard to create here," Barron said, his tone polite but firm. "And I'm grateful for the opportunity to stay." Amanda's eyes narrowed, still skeptical. She couldn't believe that someone who looked so out of place could possess the poise and composure Barron was displaying. She didn't know who he was, but she certainly didn't believe he belonged in her world of exclusive clientele. Barron's words had no effect on her hardened judgment. Her pride in maintaining the hotel's prestigious image clouded her ability to see past her assumptions. The growing discomfort in the room didn't seem to faze her, and she barely acknowledged the guests' unease. As Barron stood there, composed and unbothered by Amanda's relentless disrespect, the tension continued to build. But despite Amanda's dismissive tone and behavior, Barron's eyes never wavered. There was no anger, no aggression, only a quiet disappointment in the way people could be so quick to judge others. Though he didn't say it aloud, Barron was reminded of his own experiences growing up, how he'd often been judged by others because of his background, his family, or his appearance. He'd learned long ago not to let it define him. This moment, though, was different. It was more than just a passing encounter, it was a clear demonstration of how judgment could harm, how assumptions could poison the very experiences people thought they were creating. He wasn't just going to let Amanda's words slide without acknowledging the deeper issue. But for now, Barron held his ground, remaining calm and collected, letting the quiet power of his composure speak volumes in the face of her continued disrespect. Amanda's mocking tone persisted as she continued to belittle Barron, oblivious to the growing discomfort around them. "I can't believe some people think they can just waltz into a luxury hotel like this," she muttered, mostly to herself but loud enough for Barron to hear. "I swear, some people just don't know their place." She hadn't noticed the hotel manager, James, walking through the door at that moment. He'd just arrived for his shift, carrying a clipboard, his usual calm demeanor betraying no sign of urgency. But as his eyes scanned the lobby, they locked onto Barron, and immediately, his steps faltered. The recognition was instant. His gaze shifted from Barron to Amanda, who was still sniping at him. James froze for a moment, processing the scene in front of him, then quickly walked over to Amanda. His face paled slightly as the reality of the situation hit him. He knew exactly who Barron Trump was. "Amanda," James said softly, his voice suddenly stern. "Do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" Amanda, unaware of her growing mistake, continued to face Barron, oblivious to the gravity of her words. "I'm just trying to manage the situation here," she said dismissively, still focused on Barron. But James's tone was firm. "That man you're talking down to is Barron Trump. He's not just any guest here. He owns this hotel." A stunned silence fell over the lobby. The other guests who had been quietly observing the exchange now turned their attention to the conversation. The weight of James's words hung in the air, as everyone in the room absorbed the reality of the situation. Barron's calm presence, his composed demeanor, now took on an entirely new meaning. Amanda's face drained of color. Her mouth opened and closed, struggling to find the right words as the impact of her mistake sank in. She looked at Barron, who hadn't changed his expression, and suddenly, the harshness of her earlier comments seemed to echo in her mind. The embarrassment hit her all at once, and her usual confidence crumbled. "Oh, no," she muttered, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry." Her words were stumbling, almost incoherent as she realized how deeply she had misjudged him. Barron, still stoic, didn't respond immediately. He simply stood there, unaffected by her apology. His silence spoke volumes. He had heard worse, seen worse, and he knew the truth of the situation. People like Amanda were quick to judge based on appearances. He didn't need to feed into her remorse. Amanda's face turned bright red as she stammered her apology again. "I didn't know. I thought you were just another guest." Barron's eyes remained calm, not a flicker of emotion betraying his thoughts. "It's all right," he said simply, his voice steady. "But next time, be more careful about who you judge." As he turned to walk away, the weight of his words hung in the air, leaving Amanda with nothing but regret and an overwhelming sense of embarrassment. The room was still, save for the quiet murmur of the other guests, who now knew that this was a moment they would never forget. Barron stood calmly, allowing the weight of the moment to settle before addressing Amanda. His expression remained steady, but there was a quiet intensity in his voice when he finally spoke. "You know, true luxury isn't about how people dress or what they can afford," he began, his words carrying a calm but firm tone. "It's about kindness, respect, and the way you treat others, no matter who they are or what they look like." Amanda, still in shock from the realization of who he truly was, stood frozen for a moment. The harshness of her actions began to feel even more apparent in the face of Barron's composed words. She knew there was nothing she could say to undo the damage, but his message had already begun to sink in. Barron looked around at the guests who had witnessed the uncomfortable exchange. They were still, some with their heads turned slightly toward him, others with their eyes down, sensing the lesson unfolding before them. Barron's gaze softened as he addressed them, his voice carrying to everyone in the room. "None of us are more important than anyone else," Barron continued. "No one's worth is determined by their clothes, their background, or their bank account. We're all just people trying to do our best, and how we treat each other defines who we truly are." He paused for a moment, letting his words linger in the air, before looking back at Amanda. She was visibly shaken, her face flushed with the realization of how deeply she had misjudged him. She opened her mouth, ready to offer another apology, but Barron raised his hand gently, signaling that words, though appreciated, weren't what mattered in this moment. "I hear your apology, but actions speak louder than words," Barron said, his voice still calm but carrying an undeniable weight. "It's what we do when no one is looking that shows who we really are. And that's what counts." Amanda stood still, her eyes filled with remorse, knowing the depth of her mistake. Barron's words had struck a chord with her, but there was nothing more she could do to fix the moment. She could only try to learn from it, to understand that judgment based on appearances was not only wrong but harmful. As Barron turned and walked away, leaving Amanda to process her actions, the silence in the lobby was filled with a quiet understanding. Barron's lesson had reached far beyond Amanda. It had resonated with everyone who had witnessed the exchange, an unspoken reminder that true luxury lies not in possessions or status but in the humanity we show one another every day. Amanda stood frozen in place, her mind racing as Barron's words echoed in her ears. The realization of how wrong she had been, how quickly she had judged someone based solely on their appearance, weighed heavily on her. She had been so focused on maintaining the hotel's exclusive image that she had failed to see the bigger picture, the importance of treating every person with respect, regardless of their background. A deep sense of regret washed over her as she understood the true impact of her actions. Her own biases had clouded her judgment, and she could see now how hurtful her words must have been. As the silence lingered, Amanda couldn't help but reflect on how often she had dismissed people based on preconceived notions. In that moment, she realized the need for change, not just in the way she treated others, but in her entire mindset. The exclusive atmosphere she had tried to uphold was shallow compared to the warmth and humanity Barron had shown. It was a humbling moment, and though she felt deeply ashamed, it also sparked a new understanding in her heart. At that point, James, the hotel manager, approached Barron with a sincere expression. He offered an apology on behalf of the hotel, recognizing that Amanda's behavior was unacceptable. "I am so sorry for the way you were treated, Mr. Trump," James said, his tone earnest. "This will not be tolerated again. We value respect and kindness above all else, and will make sure this lesson is shared with the entire team." Barron gave a slight nod, acknowledging James's words. As he left the lobby, he felt a small sense of satisfaction, knowing that his simple act of composure had sparked a change, not just for Amanda, but for the entire hotel. The incident at the hotel didn't stay quiet for long. As soon as Barron left, whispers about what had happened spread quickly through the lobby, and before long, the story made its way onto social media. Guests who had witnessed the exchange shared their accounts of Barron's graceful handling of the situation, praising him for his composure in the face of Amanda's harsh treatment. Many people admired the quiet strength he had shown, and the story soon went viral, with countless posts applauding his dignified response to the humiliation he had endured. On the other hand, Amanda's actions were quickly criticized online. People were shocked by her judgmental attitude, especially in a luxury environment that prided itself on being welcoming. The incident became a learning moment for many, a reminder that no matter who you are, kindness should always come first. Amanda, still feeling the weight of her mistake, realized that her behavior had caused more damage than she had initially understood. While it was embarrassing, it sparked a personal transformation in her. She began to reflect on her own biases and made an active effort to change how she treated others moving forward. The realization that her judgment had not only harmed Barron but had also affected her own growth motivated her to be more mindful in the future. As the day came to a close, Barron found a quiet corner in the hotel lobby, preparing to leave. He took a moment to reflect on the situation. He knew that his quiet act of kindness had left an impact, not just on Amanda but on everyone who had witnessed the exchange. His ability to remain calm, composed, and respectful in the face of judgment was more than just a personal triumph, it was an example for the hotel staff, who had watched the situation unfold in front of them. The incident had a lasting effect on the hotel and its staff. As word of the exchange spread, the boutique began to shift its philosophy toward inclusivity, kindness, and empathy. The staff, especially Amanda, began to reassess their attitudes toward guests, understanding that luxury wasn't just about exclusivity, but also about making people feel welcome and respected. Barron's brief interaction, though quiet, had set a powerful example for the entire hotel. The experience left everyone involved with a renewed understanding of the importance of humility and kindness, reshaping the boutique's culture and setting a new standard for how guests should be treated. As Barron walked out of the hotel, he didn't seek any recognition or applause. The lesson he had imparted was clear: true luxury isn't about appearances or wealth, it's about how we treat others. His legacy would be one of empathy and respect, reminding everyone that in a world full of judgments, kindness is the real luxury.